For 8 long years, I lived in the shadows of my own life, wearing the mask of an unsuccessful man. I let the world, including my wife Sophia, believe that I was just an ordinary, unemployed husband with no ambition or drive. I played the role so well that even I sometimes forgot who I truly was. It wasn't easy, pretending to be less than I am. It hurt when people looked through me, dismissed me, laughed at me. But I endured it all for a reason. Sophia had changed over time. The woman I once loved had grown distant, cruel even. She surrounded herself with friends who were just like her, shallow, arrogant, and dismissive. They held their social gatherings in our home, drinking wine, gossiping, and sharing laughter that often came at my expense. I remember one evening in particular. I had come in from a long day, unbeknownst to them, not from job hunting, but from overseeing meetings at my own company. They saw me walk through the door in casual clothes and assumed I had been lounging around all day. Sophia laughed, holding a glass of wine, and said, "Still no luck with finding a job, Daniel? Maybe you should try a paper route." Her friends erupted in laughter. I stood there, smiling politely, my heart aching. It wasn't just the words, it was the smugness in her tone, the cold gleam in her eyes. She didn't see me as her husband anymore. She saw me as a failure. What they didn't know was that behind the scenes, I had built something extraordinary. Summit Innovations. My company. A dream I had nurtured in silence, away from judgmental eyes. I hired the best people, laid a solid foundation, and created something that would one day shake their world. Ironically, some of those laughing friends of Sophia's ended up working for my company in mid-level positions, unaware that the man they mocked at home was the one signing their paychecks. I didn't stop there. I quietly started gathering evidence, documents, emails, conversations, all pointing to unethical behavior in the company's internal operations. Sophia and her friends weren't just arrogant socially, they were careless professionally. They gossiped about confidential deals, manipulated reports, and abused their positions. I watched, listened, and took notes. I wanted every detail, every slip-up. Not for revenge. At least that's what I told myself at first. But deep down, I wanted justice. Then came the day I had been preparing for. It was a routine board meeting, at least that's what they thought. Sophia's friends were there, along with department heads. I walked in wearing a tailored suit, no longer hiding behind worn-out clothes or downcast eyes. The room fell silent. Confused looks turned into shock. And then came the moment. "I am Daniel Carter," I said, looking directly at them. "Founder and CEO of Summit Innovations." The silence was deafening. Sophia's friends stared at me as if seeing a ghost. Some went pale. Others exchanged nervous glances. Sophia, who had joined the meeting late, walked in just in time to hear the end of my statement. Her eyes widened. She tried to speak, but the words caught in her throat. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. I presented the evidence clearly, professionally, and with irrefutable proof of their misconduct. The room that once echoed with their laughter now held only silence and tension. One by one, I announced their terminations, effective immediately. I could see the humiliation on their faces. These were people who thought they were untouchable. After the meeting, I asked Sophia to stay behind. We sat in my office, the walls now bearing the weight of truths that could no longer be ignored. I looked at her, really looked at her. "You laughed at me. You humiliated me. You stopped being my partner a long time ago. I gave you everything, and in return, you treated me like nothing." She tried to justify, to explain, but the damage had been done. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. The power of truth was enough. She left the office in silence, and in the days that followed, her world began to crumble. Without her job, her social circle began to dissolve. People who once smiled at her now whispered behind her back. Meanwhile, I refocused my energy on the company. I invested in employee well-being, brought in fresh leadership, and rebuilt the work culture from the ground up. Productivity soared. The atmosphere shifted. People felt seen, respected, and valued. And me? I finally felt free. Not because I had exposed anyone or brought them down, but because I had reclaimed who I truly was. I didn't need applause or validation. I needed peace. And I found it. Sophia faded from my life like a shadow at sunset. She lost not only the comfort of wealth, but also the respect she had once taken for granted. I moved forward, not with bitterness, but with a sense of clarity. Looking back, I understand now. Revenge wasn't about watching others fall. It was about rising above the pain, the humiliation, and the lies. It was about turning silence into strength and betrayal into a new beginning. I learned that the most powerful revenge isn't destruction, it's evolution. And I had evolved. In the weeks that followed, I moved into a smaller, quieter place, nothing extravagant, just something that felt like mine. For the first time in years, I could breathe without the constant weight of pretense. No more pretending to be less than I am. No more waking up to someone who saw me as a burden. I had spent so long hiding my light to keep others comfortable. Now I let it shine. At work, the change was noticeable. People walked into Summit Innovations with pride. They knew leadership had changed, not just in title but in heart. I sat with employees, listened to their concerns, shared lunches, encouraged creativity. I wasn't just the boss behind a glass door anymore. I was present, engaged, real. And they responded. Projects moved faster, teams grew stronger, and the company began gaining a reputation, not just for innovation but for integrity. As for Sophia, I heard bits and pieces. She tried to regain footing socially, but people distanced themselves. Those who once flocked to her parties now ignored her messages. The mask she wore for years finally cracked, and underneath it, there was a woman struggling to accept the consequences of her choices. One day, she called. I debated answering, but did. She didn't ask for forgiveness, not exactly. She said she missed the life we had, the comfort, the home. But I reminded her, it wasn't just the life that was lost. It was the respect, the love, the partnership. All things she had dismissed as worthless. I didn't see you, she whispered. No, I replied calmly. You saw me. You just chose to look away. That was the last time we spoke. In the months that followed, I traveled, short trips, nothing lavish. I met new people, reconnected with old friends, and began to understand who I was beyond the titles. I started writing again, something I hadn't done since college. Just reflections, thoughts about growth, pain, trust, and redemption. It helped me process everything. And then, one quiet afternoon, while sitting by a lake a few hours outside the city, I realized something profound. I wasn't angry anymore. Not at Sophia. Not at her friends. Not even at myself for staying in the shadows so long. I had needed that journey. Every insult, every moment of loneliness, it all led me here. Because in the end, life didn't just hand me justice, it gave me a second chance. A chance to live honestly, to lead with purpose, to love myself enough to walk away from people who couldn't see my worth. So, if there's one thing I've learned, it's this. Silence is not weakness. Kindness is not foolishness. And revenge, true revenge, is not in hurting others, but in rebuilding your life so beautifully that the pain no longer has a place in it. I'm not the man they laughed at anymore. I never was.